Hey everyone, welcome to the Fargo 3D Printing Show. Jake and John here on the show today. We're going to break down 3D Hub's 3D printing trends of August. So this was actually information from July, is where they actually collected this, obviously, because it's the beginning of August. So this is everything during July that was going on. So we're going to step through this, kind of break this down, give our comments on what we see interesting, what we kind of see up and coming maybe, and just kind of break it down that way. So I mean, let's kind of dive into it. So the listed printers on 3D Hubs as of this report is just a little bit over 12,000, so probably about 13.
Just over 20,000. So
I must have my graph wrong.
Yep, so your graph is cut off a little bit. So they just broke this is the first month that they broke the 20,000 printer point. And the thing that's interesting about this is just how short of a time ago they only had 10,000 printers. So they went from, let's see, it took the company 21 months to reach the 10,000 printer milestone, which isn't really too surprising. I mean, it was a startup, so it took some while for it to gain traction. But so that was 21 months to get to that point, and it only took 6 months to go from 10,000 to 20,000. And some of that we can attribute to just 3D Hubs growing on its own, but I think we can also attribute a lot of it to more printers being out there. So people that were already aware of 3D Hubs and just needed to get their printers listed on the site. Yeah, so the month of July had 464 new printers. Not new as in new models of printers, but new printers just added to the system. Yeah. So let's see. I mean, if you project that out again, I mean, it's going to take, if they grow that quickly again, it's only going to take probably 4 or 5 months for them to get to 30,000 printers, which, I mean, that's pretty astonishing that you have that many printers tied together in one system, period. Yeah.
I mean, and it also kind of lends to a portion of what is actually out there in the 3D printing market. Just what's out there as far as the machines go. Where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that.
Probably talking about the new printers that are new on the site, the ones that are trending.
Well, I mean, the highest rated, it's not where I was going, I don't know where I was going, but the highest rated 3D printers, I'm actually, intrigued by these numbers. The Prussia steel is at a 4.87 rating on this, which, if you start going down the list, it's some of the newer ones that have kind of come out. So they're either a Kickstarter or they're an Indiegogo that are shipping, and I think we're going to see a lot more of those types of printers out there because they are at a lower price point, so more people are able to obtain those, so that then they can say, okay, well, I got this $200 machine, let's put it to work. So then they maybe turn to 3D Hubs and say, hey, I want to put it up here. So I think we're going to see more of those lower cost machines on websites like this.
Well, so one that's a really good example. So on their let's see, for their list of, yeah, I think this is the top reviewed ones. When you look at the top 5, yeah, so the Prusa Steel,
yeah, and
the Rapide Light 200. So that's one that
it's an Australian manufacturer.
Yep, and I think it was, that one was not Kickstarted, but it was crowdfunded through Indiegogo. So that's one of those printers that, I mean, I think what's probably happening, and the reason that you see the rating so high, I mean, I'm sure it does a really nice job printing, but the reason that you see newer printers in the top rated more often is the way that 3D Hubs works is when you get a printer listed on there, if you want to get a review right away so that you have at least one review on your site, you can 3D print a Marvin and then take a picture of it and upload it, and then 3D Hubs will rate it based on your speed and print quality and all that. So that you're probably getting a lot of 5-star reviews out of that. So it's probably skewing the results a little bit. I'm sure that the print quality is also good too.
Yeah, because looking at some other information, the Rapid Light 200, which is in the number 2 spot, raised $350,000 on Indiegogo, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, that's how quickly this thing has kind of risen to a 4.84 rating on this trend. So it's kind of interesting to see how quickly these are getting reviews and ratings, and it'll be interesting to see this report in 6 months from now when some of these newer machines are out there a little bit more. People are able to review them themselves, and to see how that is actually going to shake out in the ownership of the market. It'd be actually kind of interesting to see price break wise of printer models how much does, you know, sub $1,000 bring carry X percentage of the market versus printers that are over $1,000. It'd be interesting to see that number.
Well, and something else, when you're looking at the top 10 list for print quality, there's not a big spread as far as the quality scores go. So the number 1 spot, the print quality rating is a 4.87, but then when you look at the number 10 spot, it's a 4.75. So that's a spread of 0.12. I mean, it's not a big difference. So I mean, the print quality is all, I mean, it's pretty, you know, pretty on par. I mean, they're all pretty on par with each other. And the one thing, so looking at this, there is quite a difference in the number of reviews. Well, the majority of them, you're looking at the number of reviews of 45 for the Prusa Steel, which is in the number 1 spot. The one in the number 10 spot is 68 reviews. But then when you look at the number 4 spot, this is kind of the outlier. The Zortrax M200, 515 reviews. Yeah. So that tells you that there is a lot of Zortrax M200 printers out there. Zortrax, that's a Polish 3D printer manufacturer. We saw that machine at CES when we were there. Really, I mean, I was really pleased with the print quality. The build quality looks good. It's a nice machine.
I think I saw one at one of my recent trips that I went on. And like you said, yeah, it's a very, very nice machine.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the printer manufacturers can learn a lot by looking at the Zortrax M200. So what's cool about looking at this monthly report from 3D Hubs is it gives you a lot of information into just kind of which companies have a lot of market share, which companies have printers that are performing really well. So if you start looking at when you start looking at trending printers, and this is where you're looking at month-over-month growth. So you're going to see a little bit of crossover from this trending printers list and the printers that are highly rated. So trending printers, Ultimaker 2 extended. So this is looking at the last month's number of printers compared to this month's number of printers. So the Ultimaker 2 extended is brand new. I mean, so position change, it really isn't changing position. It's just it's there. Another one is the M3D, the micro. So that's another printer that I believe was crowdfunded and then was launched. So. I don't know if that one was as recent as the.
So you said the Micro 3D, right?
Yep, the Micro 3D.
So it's a $200 3D printer launched on Kickstarter. They sold more than 10,000 units and they raised over $3.4 million. So they're claiming the second spot with 104.5% growth over the last month. So yeah, they've kind of worked their way.
Yeah, and I don't know what their retail price point is, but I have a feeling it's going to be around the $500 to $700 price range. So that $199, that was the low price when they were that was the lowest. Lowest
that was you could the early bird.
Yeah, the early bird special for when they were on Kickstarter. But the fact that they sold over 10,000 units, I mean, that's pretty huge. So I think we're going to start seeing 3D Hubs flooded with the M3D here pretty soon. One of the other trending printers, which is a bit of a surprise to me, is the Objet 24. I don't know that this is a new printer unless you had just a couple people that were out there that already had the Objet. So Objet, that's their...
Well, I know who they are, but I'm not familiar with that specific machine.
Well, for the people that are listening, in case you aren't familiar with it, so Objet is it's owned by Stratasys. So they are the ones
Israeli-based.
Yep. So they do the polyjet printing. So that's where you have the liquid resin, it sprays it, and it can do that in full color as well. So the Objet 24, I don't know what sets that away or sets that apart from like the Objet 30. I think it might just be a smaller version of it. So the other two printers that grew quite a bit are the Vinci 1.0. So that had a 47% growth from the previous month, and then the PrinterBot Metal Plus that had a 40% growth from the previous month.
And be the first, I've heard some interesting stuff about that printer as well.
Yeah, their CEO actually stepped down this last week.
Yeah.
Yep, to go do something else, which is the other project he has going is pretty cool too. It's basically trying to prepare companies and schools for 3D printing. So doing a lot of education on, okay, here's how you take advantage of 3D printing, here's how you get started with it. But anyway, yep, back to be the first.
So yeah, so that was just, I've looked at a couple of their machines. I think we've seen them at CES a couple times. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Lulzbot TAS 5 actually dropped down a little bit in the rankings on this month. I think it was up closer to the top last month, so it's interesting to see that one kind of drop off.
Yeah, because it dropped.
I'm surprised.
Actually, if it dropped 9, that means it must have been number 1 last month.
So I'm actually surprised that the Lulzbot Mini is not on here.
And which report is?
Well, this is the trending printers. I'm just surprised that it's not on there because they have been selling quite a few. They're a great machine. And I'm just surprised that it's not even on, it's not really on any of these. You don't see it at all, really. There is no Lulzbot Mini anywhere on this list, which I'm really surprised to see that.
Well, and the TAS 5 makes a little sense from a trending point of view, because I think if you're doing any bureau work, which I think a lot of people are doing, so if doing custom printing for other people.
But I mean, if you look at
that, and the TAS 5 is newer than the Lulzbot Mini is.
Yeah, but still, that kind of reinforces my thought that it should be at least on this list, because if you look at some of the new ones that just came out and they're on this list already, I'm just surprised personally that the Lulzbot Mini isn't on here. Yeah. Another interesting fact to go back and talk about the Ultimaker is the 3D Hubs has over 2,000 of the Ultimakers. It doesn't say which ones, but they have about 2,000 different Ultimakers in their hubs already. So it's just a little bit interesting fact on that.
Well, because Ultimaker, I mean, when you look at just the Ultimaker 2, it has the highest number of printers on 3D Hubs. Because when you start looking at the breakdown of the total number of printers, it's Ultimaker 2, and then the Prusa i3, Replicator 2, Replicator 2X, Ultimaker 1, and then RepRaps, and then it just keeps going down from there.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very popular, and I mean 3D Hubs is based in Europe, so it has a larger European base, and Ultimaker has been very popular in Europe because it wasn't very easy to get an Ultimaker in the United States. I mean, they have distribution in the US now, but for a long time, the only way to get it was to order and have them ship it directly from, I think they're based in the Netherlands. So it was to get it shipped from there. And I mean, you'd end up spending $200 to $400 just to get it shipped. So on top of I mean, as far as the desktop printers go, that was at a higher price point. I think it was the high 2000s, almost close to the $3,000 mark.
It's like a $2,800 machine, 26 somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's the last time I checked. But, and the top printing cities, Fargo isn't on here yet.
No, it's not.
We'll get it on there at some point. But New York actually has 320 printers, and they're the first city to break 300. So I think, this is where we're going to see a lot more of these break 300. LA is at 266, Milan's at 237, London's at 227. So I think in the next couple months, I think for sure in the next 6 months, we're going to see those three in particular go up. Mm-hmm. And I think, just interesting to see, New York as the top, kind of the top user.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what demographic from, I don't know if you can click on this on your iPad. I can't do it on my paper. If you click on New York, if it breaks it down.
As to what people are printing?
Yeah. Because it'd be interesting if it's MakerBot heavy or if it's...
I'm sure 3D Hubs has that information, but from the stuff that they already have prepared, I don't have a way to go into that and see. No.
Oh, looks like it's clickable in here.
Because you can click on it, but what it does, so if you click on the city for New York, what it does is it takes you to all the different map. Yeah, it takes you to all the different hubs that are in New York. Yeah, it doesn't give you stats breakdown.
Need more information, 3D Hubs, on that one. Come on.
Well, yeah.
So it'd be interesting.
It'd be nice if they had an API actually that you could pull all that information from and get all the information on where the printers are, what type. And then the other thing is what type of things people are printing. That's another thing that's a little bit more towards the bottom of the report.
Yeah, let's actually skip to that because that's actually, I'm not surprised, but it's interesting to see who's bringing up after first place, because first place is prototyping.
Yep.
Which isn't surprising. You got your architectures, you got your engineering, and all.
Well, no, and that's not architecture, because prototype, that's more mechanical prototype. But
I'm wondering because they don't even have architectures. Is that
scale model?
Is it
scale model? You're looking at the average order value. So average order value is different than the actual print category. So average order value, the scale model is, that's your largest, as far as bringing in money.
This is the last time I have you print anything off for me.
I told you.
Disappointed, John.
Your pages are numbered.
I know, but half my graphs are missing. My graph is cut off.
You said you wanted me to print it.
I know. I didn't realize that you'd do such a poor job of it.
Okay.
Last time.
So, scale models, it makes sense that that's a higher average order value, because if you're printing a building, it's going to be something, you're going to go through a lot of material. It's not like
we print a lot of scale models. We print a lot of prototypes for people.
Yep.
And
art and fashion is pretty high up there, which is
okay. Now it's right.
It's still looking at the popular print categories. They haven't changed. So see, that's average order value.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
Okay.
I know. I'm not arguing that part. You keep jumping around. Not in any order. But yeah, so your household is, I'm actually surprised that that's actually a subcategory. And I'm curious on what out of those are the most popular prints.
Yeah.
In that household group, what are they printing?
Well, and for a lot of that stuff, the people are self-reporting. So when you print something on 3D Hubs, you tell 3D Hubs what category your print falls under. So it's not 3D Hubs going and saying, okay, this is a household part. What someone considers a household part, someone else might consider to be hobby DIY.
Yeah.
Someone else might consider to be a prototype or a scale model. It does get a little skewed. This isn't a perfect report, but it's by far the most information that we have about what people are 3D printing.
Well, is there anything else on the types that you want to touch on before I go to the next one?
No, not really. I mean, now when you look at the popular print categories based on how many people are printing prototypes versus how many people are printing hobby DIY, the order it goes is prototype, and prototype is a full 33%, so a full third of what people are printing. And then hobby DIY at 23.1%, gadget at 13.5%, other at 12.3%, and it just keeps going on down there through scale model, art and fashion, and household. Household makes up the smallest one. Because I think a lot of people, if you're the type of person that's designing something for your house, you're designing a drawer pull or a doorknob or something like that, it probably means if you have the design skills, you probably already have the 3D printer. I could see it just not being a terribly popular category. But then the next thing we're going to take a look at is color distribution.
And this is pretty accurate. I would.
Yeah, well,
if you don't know what color you're printing in.
I mean, when you look at what we end up selling for filament, this lines up pretty well.
Yes.
The only disappointment here is, actually, no, I guess they did this for. It looks like they screwed up their color key from orange and gray. But okay, so the most popular ones, you have white. So 26.7% of the prints on 3D Hubs are done in white. And then following that, you have black at 24.2%. And then blue at 11.9%. Red at, red, where are you at? 7.8%. And then it just keeps going down from there. Then you have green, transparent or clear or natural. It depends on what you call it.
Yeah,
and then orange, gray, yellow, silver. And then you have just some
glow in the dark,
ones.
Actually.
Glow
is up there.
Glow in the dark.
Silver, glow in the dark, pink, purple, gold, brown. Brown is trailing last.
Yeah.
But glow in the dark is actually surprisingly.
Yep. Glow in the dark is at 1.3%. So it's really surprising that it's up that high. I'm guessing that's mainly hobbyist stuff.
I'm guessing. I think there's some interesting prototypes that I have seen. None of them come to my mind right now, but that have been used with glow-in-the-dark filament. I don't think we've tried any glow-in-the-dark.
We have some, we just haven't. It works, but the thing with glow-in-the-dark filament is you usually need to expose it to really intense light for a little bit, and then when you do put it into a dark area, it drops off. The brightness drops off pretty quickly. It's glow-in-the-dark. It's not...
Yeah, it's not like a glow stick.
Yeah. Then I guess the last thing on the report is just the distribution of where all the printers are. In Europe, there's a ton of different locations. It seems pretty evenly distributed, but Europe is more evenly distributed from a population point of view than the United States is. You start looking at the U.S. area of the map, you have a ton centered around the New York area, a bunch in...
in the East Coast in general.
Yep. Then a bunch in the Chicago area. Upper Midwest is pretty sparse. The mountain ranges, Nevada is pretty empty. So I don't know, it's in proportion to what the population is. There's really no big shock here. Yeah. And I think this is looking at, it's not necessarily the number of printers, but it is looking at the number of hubs. For example, we looked at Fargo, and the Fargo area has 4 hubs, and we're one of those hubs, but we have 12 printers. So it's not saying, okay, there's 25 printers in the Fargo area. It's saying, okay, there's 4 hubs, and you just don't, unless you go and click on every hub and see how many printers they have listed, you just don't really know.
Yeah. What's it like outside of, I don't have that map in front of me. What's the distribution like outside of the U.S. and Europe? So like if we look at the Asia Pacific,
Oh yeah,
Africa,
that would be interesting. Let's take a look at that. Okay, pulling out of the map, pulling back. Okay, now refresh. Oh,
this is where you insert Jeopardy.
I'd pulled out too far from the map, and there's, it didn't show the one on the International Space Station must not have theirs listed on 3D Hubs.
No, I mean they should though. I mean I'd love to print something up there. Russia.
Wow. Russia is pretty barren. As far as printers go, I mean there's just really.
I think Canada has more
printers. that entire chunk is pretty
North Dakota
sparse.
has more printers than Russia.
India has a few. There's some in the Philippines. Australia, there's some, but I mean they're in your typical spots. Again, it's where your population is. Let's take a look at Africa. So there's quite a few in South Africa.
There's actually some in Kuwait. That's interesting.
Oh wow. Okay, so these are in. The countries are listed in their native tongue, so some of these are a little difficult.
You got it.
But I mean, there's some in Namibia. Yeah, thanks. You said I could do it, Jake. You lied.
You got it. Well, hey, it's better than me. I can't even pronounce my name some days.
But yeah, South Africa. There's some. There's a few in Nigeria. Some in Kenya. I mean, again, it's where you have a developed country. You have a larger city. There's going to be some. When we take a look at South America. Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, some in Colombia, some in Venezuela. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. It's where there's people, there's going to be a 3D printer.
Yeah. So nothing. I mean, I think the one thing that surprises me a little bit is Russia doesn't
I'm
have
surprised
as many.
It's just really
bare.
It's really empty.
Yeah, I'm just surprised about that. I figured there'd at least be some more. Where you said there, with bigger populations, there's usually the more printers. I'm just surprised it's not. And maybe they're not using 3D hubs. Maybe there is something internally that they're just not, they're using instead of.
Or maybe there's a Russian version of 3D hubs that's completely separate, and we just, we're not, they might have something different in their country. It's kind of like the different social networks. It's like in the United States, Facebook was huge, but then in China, you have a completely different social network that's massive, rivaling Facebook. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we just don't have insight into, or at least we haven't looked into yet. I mean, I'm sure we could find information, and if one of you knows why 3D hubs is not very prevalent in Russia, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So always interested in learning new stuff. But that kind of wraps it up as far as the 3D hubs report goes. It's cool that 3D hubs does this every month because it does give us more insight into how the 3D printing industry is growing. And I think what this is really showing us is that it's not just your crazy technical people that are 3D printing stuff. It is your
everyday consumer.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not your typical Walmart shopper that's going and 3D printing something, but it's not just your engineers that are printing stuff anymore.
And we'll try and I know the Waller's report came out in May. So we'll see if we can get on that a little bit. If there's any questions, because that dives really deep into more of the industry itself. And I know we've looked at the Waller's report for the last couple of years now. I think this will be the third year we actually looked at it. And there's some interesting facts on where the industry is going, especially with how 3D Systems and Stratasys are sitting. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Waller's report kind of said there.
Next year's report is going to be really interesting because we had the 3D printing stocks, so the two big ones, Stratasys and 3D Systems, they went through a bit of a bubble. It was about a 1.5 to 2 year long bubble as far as their valuation goes. So they're pretty dramatically changing the way that they operate now to try and bring their share price back up, because it's I think last time I looked, and this is about a week ago, I think the 3D Systems share price is around the $12 to $15 mark, and I think their Q2 earnings report is coming out in a couple of days from when we're recording this, so it might even go further down. But a year ago, I think it got as high as $85, $90. So it's had quite the valuation shift.
But then, so we'll cover that. Do you have anything in addition to that?
Not as far as the 3D hubs or the stock. Oh, Waller's report. Because the Waller's report, the past few years that we've been reading it, they make a prediction for how quickly the industry is going to grow, and then the following year's report says that the industry grew even more than they anticipated. So they keep accelerating how quickly the industry is going to grow, and I think I can't remember what it was in the 2014 report, but I think it's continuing to grow. It's still hockey sticking.
Well, and this report with 3D Hubs is also kind of showing that it's going to keep growing. It might be in a different area. We might see more consumers starting to draw into this technology.
Well, and I'm starting to see more professional printers listed on 3D Hubs. It's not just your desktop printers. I mean, you have your Stratasys, your 3D Systems.
ProJet 3500, which is an MJP, which is like an $80,000 3D printer, is on here. And that's actually, so they actually have a whole section. We didn't really get into that. They actually have a whole section of professional printers. So let's just touch on that really quick. But, you know, your Objet 260 is at the top. ProJet 3500 is second, and then your ProJet 460 plus, then a Dimension. So you have, you know, you got a material jet, you got a binder jet, and an FDM taking the top 4 spot. Well, then with an FDM or SLS coming in 5th.
Well, you have basically,
which that's their first SLS.
You have Stratasys and 3D Systems dominating the industrial side. The only one that's not a Stratasys or 3D Systems printer is the Formiga P100, which, yeah, like you said, it's an SLS printer, which I think is the first time it's been in
that report.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So yeah, so there, like you said, there's going to be a lot more professional machines that are looking towards something like this to keep those machines busy and running. They also have, at the end of the report, if you're ever curious and want to go back and take a look at other reports, they have all the way back to December and November of 2013. And then they have most of 2014. They're missing a few months here and there. But then they have, they missed, I think, February of 2015, but they have most of this year as well. So if you're ever curious, check that out. It's in the bottom of the page. We'll put a link in here to where you can go and find this report so you can take a look at yourself. But yeah, the other ones will be are interesting as well.
Yeah. One last thing for this week. By the time that this podcast comes out, we're going to be very close to releasing a new material. Can't quite say what it is yet, but you can get a look at what a printed part looks like and what the material looks like. So it's a pretty exciting one that we've been hinting at for quite a while, and now being able to release it, we're pretty stoked. Glass-filled PLA, if you're one of the people that has been trying to order it, believe me, we're trying to crank it out as fast as we can. The demand has been even higher than we had anticipated, so we're just trying to keep up with that. But it's a very cool material, and even after the material, we have another material coming out after that, about 2 weeks following that. So about a month from now, we'll have another new material.
A week or 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of exciting stuff going on as far as the materials go.
And we'll have even more after that. So stay tuned for that.
But on behalf of Jake Clark, myself, John Schneider, we want to thank you for watching or listening to this. If you haven't already, subscribe. We want to make sure that you are able to not miss an episode of this. Each week is just continuing to get better and better. I mentioned before, still working on the sound. Hopefully next week is the week where we've really got the sound dialed in.
That's on you, Eric.
Yeah. He's like, I know. I've been telling you, I know. Yeah. If you want to follow us on social media, pretty much pick your social network. We're very likely on there. Just look for Fargo 3D Printing. So Facebook, Twitter, even Google+, we're on there. Yeah, that's about it. So again, on behalf of Jake and myself, John, thanks again for watching.
Bye-bye. Do you want to close that?
This one?
Yeah. Binder clip it.
Binder clip it. Technologic.
Technologic.